if you as an attorney stand up and say, you will see that there's no damage in this car, that's completely irrelevant. Don't even think about that.
Yeah.
What's the one thing they're going to keep thinking
They're
about?
going to be like, that's nonsense. That's the most relevant thing.
You're trying to hide that.
Exactly.
But if you put it out there in the open, it gives people exactly the opposite kind of brain reaction of, yeah, why might that be true?
Yeah.
And it makes them question that. And I don't even like the phrase failure stories or failure experiences. I prefer to look at them as lesson learned experience or struggle experiences.
Sure.
Because if you've learned something from an experience, it's not a failure.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the most important thing that you want to get across to people.
Yeah.
And if you're worried about this, and talking to your listeners here, if you're worried about this as a storyteller and saying, well, I can't, I've got to only find the positive things that are in there. Find one thing that isn't a big abject failure that you'd be terribly embarrassed about, but maybe was a little slip. Yeah. I tell a story sometimes about driving to the airport on a Sunday afternoon, and I'd gotten going a little fast. There was very little traffic, and I'd gotten going a little fast, and I backed it back down. And then about 2 miles later, I look in my rearview mirror. Who's right behind me? Highway patrol. Now, their lights aren't on. But what's the first thing that goes through my head when I see the highway patrolman behind me?
What did I do wrong?
Oh, great. Oh, great. They're going to make me late for my flight. And I wasn't even going fast as other people. And I start going in this big argument, and I start having the conversation in my head with this police officer when they pull me over.
Yeah. And
I pull over into the next lane. The police officer pulls over behind me. Well, what does that do to my story? It just reinforces it, right?
Yeah,
this is going to happen. And so it's just building these emotions up. We get just about to the airport, and there's a place where the freeway splits. One part goes to the airport, the other goes off into another freeway. And of course, the policeman goes off in the other direction. He wasn't following me.
Yeah.
He was just trying to get to where he was going, which happened to be on the same route that I was. And that's a little bit of an embarrassing failure story that happened in my mind. It didn't cause an accident. Nobody died. There wasn't any big, huge failure in it, but it was a failure in my thinking. I'm okay talking about that.
Yeah.
And that still falls into that category of lessons learned stories about the impact of our thoughts on our own emotions. And who was upset by that? Only me. It didn't do anything to the police officer. It was all me. So think of those little experiences that you've had, even where they've been little stumbles. They don't have to be complete fall flat on your face stumbles. It can be the little stumbles, and start with there. Start there. Start with that to see how that connects people to you. See how people react to that. And that can help you be a little more comfortable with that vulnerability. And you might want to build up to the point that you can share some of the more vulnerable things you're struggling with.